It took me 8 years to find the best diet approach, and I'm about to teach you it in less than 30 minutes. Hi friends, welcome back to the Transform with MG podcast, where we'll talk all things transforming your health, body, and mindset. I'm your host, Martina Good. If you've watched or listened to my last episode, I showed you how to set up your diet to lose body fat without counting calories. But I am also very aware that there are going to be many people that are calorie tracking. And I want to make this episode because I am so sick of hearing from women that are eating 1200 calories, 1000 calories, or even less, which by the way, wouldn't even feed a toddler. And that's because they're getting their information from pages of personal trainers or coaches who have women on extremely low calories so that they can get a drastic transformation out of them. Or else they're using calorie tracking apps such as MyFitnessPal, which is a very great source for counting your calories, but it's absolutely terrible to give you your calorie targets because it doesn't take into account sustainability of that diet, your health, or hormone balance. So look, if all you care about is dropping weight or dropping body fat, eating the least amount of calories possible, yes, it's the way to go. But if you care about maintaining that result and you also want to maximize your energy levels, have elevated mood, maintain your libido, and have symptom and pain-free periods, then I recommend that you keep listening. I am really talking from experience here because I've fallen into the false promises of quick fixes and fad diets. I went through a period where I was religiously tracking every single thing that went into my mouth, every single gram of calorie, any liquid calories. And I would actually congratulate myself if I didn't go over the 1000 calorie mark. And it didn't get me too far. And it didn't end well for me. Not only was I in a constant loop of dieting because there was just so long that I could go on such low calories before it ended up in a massive binge. And then I would feel guilty, I would feel shame, and I felt like I needed to restrict myself. So off I went back on low calorie diets. And of course, the constant loop just restarted where I was restricting myself without even realizing that I am massively under eating and then questioning why I couldn't stick to a diet or why I was experiencing these massive cravings and desire to eat all these hyper palatable foods and why I couldn't control myself around food without realizing what being on those extremely low calorie diets is doing to me. So I feel like it is my obligation to actually show you a way that you can set up your diet in a way that will get you to your goal, that will help you drop body fat, but it will make it sustainable, it will make it enjoyable, it's going to be a long-term approach. Quick break, I just want to let you know about my Regain Challenge. It's a program where you learn to regain confidence, strength, and control over food. If you are lost on where to start, we're getting to the end of the first quarter of 2024 and you feel like you're struggling to push through and stick with your goals, then this program is exactly for you. Head over to the description below and you'll find a link to the application form. It takes 2 minutes, fill that out, and I will get back to you whether you're the right fit for the program. Okay, back to the episode. When it comes to losing body fat, losing weight, we all know that diet plays a massive role in that. And when we talk about diets, we all want an answer to what is the best diet. And you're going to have gurus online claiming that the vegan diet is the best diet for fat loss. The carnivore diet is the best diet for fat loss. The keto, the Atkins, the intermittent fasting. And I'm going to let you in on a secret that is going to solve all your confusion. The best diet is one that A, you can sustain long term, B, is aligned with your goal, and C, one that you enjoy. Do you know what is the common theme in all the above diets that every person online claims to be the best? They all create a calorie deficit and thereby they all work. Yes, you heard that right. All diets work, provided they put you in a calorie deficit. The law of thermodynamics states that if you consume less calories than you burn, you will lose body fat, which means that if you are eating keto, provided that you consume less calories than you burn, you will lose fat. If you do intermittent fasting, provided that you eat less calories than you burn, you will lose fat. You get my point. The problem with all these diets is that they are extremely restrictive because they require you to cut out food or food groups or engage in prolonged fasting, which is not a long-term solution. When you look at your diet, you should be confident that you will be able to eat like this for the rest of your life. Yes, you might have to play around with the quantities and make certain food swaps depending whether you're looking to drop body fat, maintain your physique, whether you're aiming for some performance goal, whether you want to gain weight or muscle, but the bulk of the diet should not change because there are certain principles that come to developing good eating habits that don't change regardless of whether you're trying to drop body fat, maintain your current body composition, or put on muscle and weight. So at this point, you might be saying to yourself, all right, Martina, I believe you. You convinced me. Now give me the answer on how I should be eating. So here is an approach. And bear in mind, this approach entails you to calorie count. So if you aren't somebody that wants to do that, you've done that before and you found it didn't work for you, perhaps you have obsessive personality and get too caught up in the numbers and you want more of a habit-based and portion control approach, go back and listen to the episode where I talk about how to lose body fat without counting calories. And also, if you are at that point where you've done a lot of dieting phases, bulking phases, and at the moment you really just want to maintain your body composition, yet eat in a healthy way that supports your health and your energy levels, that is going to be an episode for you. This is an episode for somebody that is purely starting out and hasn't a massive bank of knowledge when it comes to the calories, when it comes to macros. And I am not against calorie counting. I don't think it's a long-term approach, and you should be able to get to the place where you don't need an app to help you maintain the body composition or get in shape, but it is a tool that you can utilize at certain parts of your fitness journey to help you achieve a goal. I also think that initially, if you have never tracked before, it actually gives you a lot of self-awareness, and self-awareness is key when it comes to achieving a goal. Because essentially, if you aren't aware of the habits, then how can you change? So let's get into an approach of setting up your calories. And I'm going to use fat loss here because it's going to get a little confusing if I start adjusting this approach to various fitness goals. Say, for example, you want to drop some body fat. First thing you want to establish are your maintenance calories. The way you're going to find out your maintenance calories is using a Harris-Benedict formula, or to make it even more simpler for you, if you type in TDEE calculator online, this will allow you to enter your metrics such as your age, height, weight, and activity levels, and it will give you your maintenance calories, which is of course an estimate. A math formula or calorie calculator doesn't know your body as well as you do, but it is your starting point. Now, once you have figured out your maintenance calories, you want to subtract 300 from that number. Why 300? Because if you're a female, you don't want to drop your calories too low. Eating low calories is going to throw your hormones out of balance, and it also will mean that you will adopt to these low calories, and if you hit a plateau with your weight loss or fat loss, then you will have to drop them calories even further. And we already know that low calorie diets do not work. Not only does it make it really hard to sustain to, which like in my case might lead to binging, overeating, extreme cravings, or it might mean that you're going to be missing out on the adequate amount of nutrients and protein that you need to actually optimally function. We talked about there's an approach to losing weight, and if that's all you care about, then eating as little as possible is going to get you there, but it will also come with like consequences of having a negative impact on your mental health, on your physical health, on your energy levels, on your mood and whatnot. So this is why 300 is a really good starting point, because it gives you more room to play around with when you hit a plateau, but it also ensures that your health and well-being is at its best as well. So you're putting yourself in a calorie deficit, which means that you're going to be like burning fat, but you're also going to be supporting your health and your hormones. Once you have figured out your deficit calories, now you want to determine your protein intake. So calories are king when it comes to changing body composition, because if we go back to what I said about the law of thermodynamics, is you got to be eating less than you're burning to drop body fat. That's it. That's the principle, okay? The way you get there, what diet you decide to follow and what diet approach you decide to follow, it is really just a method of getting into that calorie deficit. So calories are king, but the second part that is very important is your protein intake. So when you're setting your protein intake, you want to multiply your body weight in kilograms by 1.8 to 2 grams, and this is your daily intake. Once you have your protein intake set, then the next macronutrient to look at are your fats. Why? Because they're essential fatty acid, which means that there are certain fats that your body cannot make itself, and we have to get it through food. Also, as a female, fats are absolutely crucial for proper functioning of our hormones, both for our like cycle, so that we have symptom-free, pain-free periods, but also for our memory, because 60% of our brain cells are made up of fatty cells, which means that they require that intake of essential fats so we can have better memory, we can have better focus, stay sharp and productive, and also from satiety reasons. Fats are really satiating and they slow down the breakdown of food, which means that we are feeling fuller for longer and we're more satisfied and satiated from our meals. So you want at least 20% of that calorie deficit number to be coming from fats. Then the remainder is for carbohydrates. Not that they're not important, but there are no essential carbohydrate. Our bodies can utilize glucose and make glucose ourselves, but nevertheless, carbs are our body's main fuel of source. So if you are an active person, then they are still required. So all macronutrients are required. This is what I'm getting to. But that's how you want to set it up. Once you have your calories calculated using the calorie calculator, you subtracted 300, you have your deficit, then you want to determine how much protein you should be having each day by calculating your body weight in kg by 1.8 to 2 grams. So you have like a range there. Then 20% of your calorie deficit intake are fats and the rest are carbs. Now you can go and download a calorie calculating app such as MyFitnessPal. MyFitnessPal is like the most popular nowadays, and you can enter those metrics. Do not, MyFitnessPal, when you're setting up an account, is going to prompt you to enter in your metrics and they're going to give you a deficit. I already said it, it's so unsustainable. I had women that got a reading of under 1000 calories. We need so much more simply just to survive and operate properly. So please do not use that. Use the method I just described and just input those numbers in there. So what you want to do next, basically, what you got are just estimates. Calorie calculators, math formulas don't know your body as well as you do. So you have to test those numbers, especially your calories. So it's important that you keep track of if body composition and fat loss is your goal, then you need to keep track of body fat dropping, right? So there are various ways you can do that. Stepping on scales is one, but I will actually say there's a caveat to using just scales to measure fat loss, because scales measure weight. Weight and fat, although they're used interchangeably, and I do that as well and probably did already throughout the episode where I said fat loss and weight loss, while they're used interchangeably, they are not the same thing. Weight refers to bone mass, muscle mass, body fat, water, all of that combined. Whereas when we're talking about fat and body fat, that is just relating to the fat that you have on your body. So there is a difference, which means that you may weigh the exactly same thing. You might be going through your fat loss / weight loss journey, not having changed anything on the scale, but look drastically different. And that is if you also engage in resistant training. Why? Because as you resistant train, you're putting on lean muscle mass. If you're in a calorie deficit, you're also dropping body fat. Fat tissue, muscle tissue, they both weigh the same. 1 pound of fat is the same as 1 pound of muscle, but fat takes up more space in your body. Muscle is more dense, taking up less space in your body. So visually, you can look drastically different while weighing the same on the scales. So scales is just one, but I wouldn't use it in isolation. What I do with my clients is also get them to take progress pictures and measurements. So you want to measure your progress over the span of 2 to 3 weeks and see whether you're making any changes. If you are in fact eating in a calorie deficit, you should be seeing some changes happening, okay? If not, then you can adjust. You can lower your calories or perhaps increase your activity, such as doing more steps. So when we're looking at calorie balance, we have two sides of the equation, and you can imagine a seesaw here, right? If your calories in are the calories you consume through food, and calories out are the calories you expend through exercise, you can create a calorie deficit through 3 methods. Simply by just altering the amount of food you eat, reducing the amount of calories you eat. That's one. Second one is you might remain eating what you're eating, but increase your activity levels, which means you're going to be burning more calories, creating a calorie deficit that way. Or the third option, which is my favorite option, is that you combine the two. You start off with a small calorie deficit and you also increase your activity, and that way you're not falling into the vicious cycle of being on restrictively low calories, because you can create a larger deficit by increasing your activity levels. But essentially, you will have to test those numbers that you set out and see if it's working for you. And don't get too discouraged. If you are being totally honest with yourself and you are actually tracking everything you eat and you are being active, be patient, because it might take a little bit of time for your body to kick in. But if you don't see changes after a week, and you know in reality you maybe haven't been as consistent, don't blame it on the fact that this approach is not working, because you need to give it time. And chances are, if you're only starting, you've never done this before, it might take a bit of time for you to be consistent. So you have to be consistent for at least 2 to 3 weeks. And I mean consistent, not just try it for the first 2 weeks and it has been all over the place. Give yourself time until you got at least 2 consistent weeks before making any changes. I also want to mention that it doesn't only come down to food quantity. Yes, you can eat whatever the heck you want, provided that you eat in a calorie deficit, you're going to drop body fat. And this is where a lot of people go wrong, because they get their targets and then they think they can just eat whatever they like. So they follow an approach, what it's called, if it fits your macros. So if it fits into your calories and your macros, then you can eat essentially whatever you like. Look, food quality really matters, especially when you are trying to drop body fat, because you're going to be more satiated eating whole, nutrients, minimally processed foods than if you fill up those calories with highly processed food. So you still should look at food quality when it comes to dropping body fat, even if you are calorie counting. I have clients who are counting calories, but we still follow the principles which I talked about in the episode of dropping body fat without counting calories, such as having a meal structure, staying hydrated, eating mostly minimally processed foods, and prioritizing protein at every single meal. Stuff like this, they still matter even if you're calorie counting. What calorie counting does is gives you awareness. It helps you actually learn about the calorie content of different foods, of different meals. It makes you also accountable, because if you have to track something, then if you are somebody that mindlessly eats and snacks a lot, and having to input all of that into the calorie counting app, it's just tedious, So you're going to be more aware, more accountable to yourself, and also like seeing where you're actually sitting with the numbers. Sometimes you might feel like you're not actually eating a lot. I get that so much. I have people come to me frustrated because they're saying, Martina, I'm not even eating a lot. I might be eating one meal a day. But then when we look at their diet and do an analysis, they go about their day picking at foods, picking at snacks, and all of that really accumulates. So again, it just gives you more self-awareness. It's one thing finding out how to actually set up your calories and targets, and another being adherent with them. Some extra and bonus tips I would say when it comes to calorie deficit is make sure you are having high protein meals. From satiety perspective, because protein is the most satiating out of protein, carbs, and fats, which means that you're going to be more fuller from your meals. But second of all, you want to preserve as much muscle as possible when you're in a calorie deficit, because what ends up happening if you only focus on calories and not your protein intake, and you don't consume enough protein, is that you end up being quote unquote skinny fat, which means like you're also eating into your muscle. If you're having a high protein diet while in a deficit, you're preserving as much muscle as possible, and this will get you that toned and defined look. So that's why it's still important to be hitting your protein intake. And the second bonus is volume eating, which means that you're bulking up your meals with low calorie foods such as fruit like berries, and veggies like cucumber, courgette, peppers. They're super high in nutrients, so you're going to be optimizing your health, but two, you can make a meal that looks small look huge by packing it with a lot of fruit and veggies. To recap, all diets work. Best diet is one that you can adhere to long term, is aligned with your goal, and one that you enjoy. If you hear somebody online claiming that a specific diet is the best diet, it's a red flag, because any diet that creates a calorie deficit is a diet that is going to work. There are approaches that are more sustainable than others, and clearly any diet that gets you to cut out food or food groups isn't actually something that you'll be able to continue doing for years to come. And before we wrap up, if you feel lost on where to even get started, and you are eager to regain your energy, your confidence, control over food, then join the waiting list for my next intake of the Regain Challenge. Head to the description below, click the application form, fill in your details, and I will get back to you if you are the right fit for the program. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please follow and subscribe. It really means the world to me. It indicates that you are enjoying these podcasts and I can produce more of them. I shall see you in the next episode.